Sullivan press conference took place yesterday in New York, and I'm sorry, that's going to take a while, Good morning to you. Good Friday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, hopefully capable of providing greater insight today than you. This is Daily Shot of Penguins, and it comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. Sullivan ruffled no figurative feathers, and that is par for the course with him. He also did outwardly decline to comment on his departure from Pittsburgh. And as far as getting into any sort of sentiment in that capacity, bearing in mind this was the first time he spoke publicly at all since his hiring, that was limited to exactly 1 minute of this.
Well, I can, I'm so appreciative for the opportunity that I was given in Pittsburgh and had it was a real privilege to work with that group of players there and in that organization. We were able to accomplish a lot when we were there, and I'm so grateful for that opportunity that I was given there in Pittsburgh. We've also had our fair share of disappointments over the years, and it's hard to win in this league, and so I just think that's part of it. I think, having the ability to spend a decade with some of the people that I was able to work with there, some of the players that I was able to coach there, I just think you take so much from those types of experiences, and I hope to bring those experiences here to New York that can help me be a better coach for this group of players, that can help us be as competitive as we can. We're going to try to push these guys every day to maximize the potential that exists here, and we'll see where that takes us. But that's what I hope to bring, and that I think is the takeaway from the 10 years that I spent in Pittsburgh.
Now, I don't have a critical syllable to offer on that front. If he goes to New York, or anybody who knows anything about New York, and this might doubly apply to Rangers fans, they live in tunnel vision world. You're either talking about the Rangers with them, or you're talking about people who could become Rangers someday. That's just the way it is, and that's a carryover, I think, from the non-salary cap days when that actually was how it worked. If they wanted Wayne Gretzky or Mark Messier or, my goodness, pretty much anyone, they just waited out, and that player would eventually become theirs because they could offer more money than most teams. I feel like that's really hurt them, that mindset, because it also happens to permeate either to or from management, depending on your point of view, where they think every year is the end of the world. So even when they're blessed with a couple of promising youngsters like an Alexis Lafreniere, Capo Caco, they have no idea what to do with them. Even Adam Fox has taken a big backward stride since his Norris Trophy time. Bottom line to what I'm saying, they don't want to hear him get all sappy about Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin and Chris Letang and 2 Stanley Cups, because when they think of those teams, all they think about is how the Rangers weren't part of that, and quite possibly how the Rangers haven't won a Stanley Cup since 1994, and before that it was 1940. So he handled that well, I thought. And if there's going to be an appropriate time to get into everything else, and let's not pretend that it isn't important just because he's gone. He's the winningest coach in franchise history. He is very arguably the greatest coach in franchise history. And these legacy things with people of that scope, they do matter. They do matter for your overall franchise health. But I think that's going to come the first time the Rangers and the Penguins meet, which won't be in the preseason because they never face each other in the preseason. It'll be Actually, it's usually early in the regular season if you go over the way the schedules have been past few years. So maybe it's in Pittsburgh, maybe the league's schedule maker or TV networks want to align something like that. That occurs. Maybe it'll be at Madison Square Garden, and maybe it'll be somebody like me asking him about this stuff, and maybe he shows more of that. But as it is, I really wouldn't think too much about this, if at all. And while I'm on this subject, I'm going to be honest with you. When Kyle Dubas came here from the Maple Leafs, the last thing I wanted to hear, just speaking for myself, was anything about Toronto. Anything. And in fact, in his first few, I don't know if it was weeks or months or whatever it was, every time I saw something related to the Penguins show up in any Toronto media form, I was assuming that he was still, staying in touch with his buddies up there or whatever. All of that ended up getting worked out. And nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. When you show up news somewhere and you're getting paid all that money and they're all trumpeting how awesome you are, the last thing they want is to hear you go out there to the podium and say, oh man, I really missed that other place. When we come back, J1Q. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. Today's J1Q comes from Matthew, and it's one of several that came this way in relation to yesterday's episode that was about what will happen whenever Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang retire or make it known that they're going to be retiring. Is it going to be a tour? Is it going to be farewells? Is there going to be good or bad receptions on the road? And one statement that I made seemed to catch the most attention out of that episode was that Sid would not be received well in two particular cities. One is the obvious, that's Philadelphia, and the other is not as obvious, and that's Ottawa. He has never been treated well in Canada's capital. And I don't know whether I got the blowback for that because it seems like it's hard to believe, or because maybe they don't have very good sound mechanisms at Canadian Tire Center or whatever on the broadcasts. But he is not at all loved there, regardless of what he did in the Olympics now twice and the Four Nations just earlier this year. But Matthew gets the J1Q for today because he brings up, DK, I would also include Washington in that list of places where the fans will not celebrate Sid on his farewell, even if the Capitals players embrace him there. There's just been too many bitter feelings over how often the Penguins crushed the Capitals' hopes for the Stanley Cup. The Penguins were to the Capitals what the Patriots were to the Steelers. I was proud of that ovation that Alexander Ovechkin got in Pittsburgh after breaking his goal record. But after the first home game back in Washington, after Ovi's goal, they showed a bunch of video tributes during the breaks, and Sid's video tribute was met with resounding boos. All rivalry aside, at least in Pittsburgh, here we can appreciate greatness. Well, maybe we're just a little bit more familiar with it. Sorry, that's a little too easy. I don't know what they'll do in Washington. I would hope that the people in D.C. who are the more intensive regulars, and Washington's always been a strange crowd because even though they've mostly filled the place up during the Ovi era, it's always felt like it's about half into it and the other half just kind of scored some tickets, right? And then, of course, out of that other half, a big percentage of it are Pittsburghers who scored tickets. But I don't know. Wouldn't you think that to some extent 2018 would wash away some of that bitterness? I mean, what ended up happening out of that, if you think about it in hindsight, is so cool in a way. The Capitals could never win anything because they couldn't get through the Penguins. The Penguins never won anything without getting through the Capitals. One of the most ridiculous historical anomalies, even though they've always been in the same division, that of the Penguins' 5 Stanley Cups, they needed to beat the Capitals 5 times. Well, wouldn't you know it, and how fitting is it that when the Capitals finally got their own cup, who did they eliminate in the second round? That's right, on Evgeny Kuznetsov's breakaway goal against Matt Murray in Pittsburgh. So if I had to condense this whole thing down to a single thought, it would be get over it. I'll bet it wasn't easy for those fans at PPG Paints Arena to get up on their feet and cheer for Ovechkin. I'll bet it wasn't. I heard from only a couple, but they didn't seem all that wild about it. It wasn't their natural instinct. They did it anyway because they're hockey fans. And it's an incredible, iconic hockey achievement. So I don't know, Matt. I don't have an answer to that. But boy, I can't imagine there will be any place that receives Sid negatively other than the one where you really want them to, just for old time's sake. That, of course, being Philly. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Penguins. We'll be back with another one of these on Monday.